So I don't really know how to start this story. I've noticed that I haven't really shared this story with you guys. And for those who are not aware, my first birth was a C-section. And I know that C-sections are something that not many speak about, or they might think is like wrong and things, but everyone has their own story and reasoning for doing a C-section, if they chose to do that route on giving birth or if they had no choice. In my case, it was an emergency C-section, which is usually more commonly known. So with my first birth, I did experience mood swings. Just like any pregnancy, or almost any pregnancy, I did experience cravings and moodiness and all the joy that comes with the pregnancy. However, my nutrition was not on point at that time. It was actually really, really bad. Although I thought I was making good choices, or at least before I was pregnant, I wasn't. And one of those things was drinking constantly iced coffee. And I'm telling you guys, I was like obsessed with caramel iced coffee at the time. I know that people say, oh, because of caffeine, but it wasn't even because of the caffeine. It was because of the amount of sugar that I had. So I feel like that could have been one of the reasons that I basically screwed up for my pregnancy, or not screwed up, but it was like I kind of went towards the unhealthy side of this. When I went to my last checkup before I gave birth, or sometime before that, I was diagnosed with gestational diabetes. I can never pronounce that correctly, which is diabetes when you're pregnant. And it was like all I had to do was really just check my blood every day, like constantly make sure that my sugar levels were correct, that they were not too high or too low. So that was just like one of the things that I was like, oh man, I really messed up. Like, it's really my fault. They had told me that I had to come back the next day, that I was going into labor. And I didn't understand at the time, because I'm like, well, how can you tell I'm going into labor tomorrow? And then basically they were explaining that they're gonna endorse my labor because the baby was a little bit too big for his time. I had still 2 weeks before my actual due date. So when they told me this, I was like confused and I was concerned. I just didn't know what to do. So I had to go to the hospital the next day, and the labor process began. They had to break my water. It was just a very horrible experience for me. So to get into detail, I was in the labor room more than maybe 30 hours because at the time I was being so stubborn. I was, not only me, but my baby was very stubborn. He didn't want to come down because the women are supposed to dilate a certain size before giving birth. And I wanted to do it all natural. I don't know what I was thinking during that time. But hey, those moms that do everything natural, I give them to that. Like, I kudos to you guys. Like, seriously, that is not an easy thing. So I was always like hearing from one side and then another side, like, they're like, oh, don't get the epidural. And then some people are like, yes, get the epidural, it's gonna help you. And then some people are like, no, don't go for the C-section. And then some people are like, go for the natural birth or go for the C-section. Listening to all of that made me very frustrated and also very nervous when I was trying to give birth. That was just part of the battle. And another thing is the actual waiting part, and waiting for me to dilate was horrifying, because not once during my pregnancy I felt any type of contraction or even pain. I think the only time that I actually felt pain was not even due to the birth. I think it was just my stress during that time. I had like a chest pain, but this was like months before I gave birth. And when I finally was in the hospital, I felt contraction for the first time, because they were kind of like basically forcing it. And when I mean by forcing it, like they were making contractions happen so the baby can start coming down. So my son was like being stubborn. He was just stuck up there. He didn't want to come down. So we waited hours and hours and hours and nothing was happening. And I was getting nervous because I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna end up having a C-section, something I didn't really want at the time. And I I was basically listening. I was giving into negative thoughts about the C-section because a lot of people see it as, you know, bad, as, oh, you're taking the easy way out, which is not the easy way out. I can vouch for that. It was just a lot going on. So, and there was a lot of hours, a lot of waiting. And then at the end, to make the long story short, if you guys want to know more details on my C-section, I can make this into a few part series so I can really get into more into depth what really happened and how the surgery happened and how everything went. So let me know down in the comments if you're interested in that. I can definitely make another video on that, like giving you guys more details into the process and everything that we did. I remember the doctors coming in and out, always trying to ask me, like, you know, if I'm okay. Then some of the doctors are like, oh no, we might have to do we might have to do it in C-section. And I was like, no, I don't want to do that. I really just want to give birth, like naturally or vaginal. And it was just like an off and on thing between me and the doctors and the nurses. One nurse was like, get the epidural. Trust me, you're not gonna feel anything. And then there was another nurse, like they were all trying to, I know they were trying to comfort me, but I felt like everyone was trying to brainwash me at the same time. So I was like, at the end I was like, nobody else, don't tell me anything. I don't want to hear you guys. I will make my own decisions. So I think at that point I was really like, really moody. I don't want to say the word that I want to say. It came to a point that it was actually an emergency C-section. This was hours and hours later, maybe like a day later, or like a day and a half later, and the doctor was like, listen, and it was almost the middle of the night. Well, not the middle, it was like maybe 12 or 1 a.m. and the doctor is telling me, listen, there is no choice at this point. Your baby will suffer if you do not get a C-section, because his head is actually positioned in the wrong way. Even though he's correctly down, his head is in position the wrong way. That's one. Secondly, he is very heavy for you to push out. And another thing is that his heart rate is going down. And I didn't realize that was going on this whole time. And I felt horrible. I felt like, wow, I'm failing as a mom. Like already, I haven't even given birth. So my mom, you know, kind of helped me out, clear my head. And she's like, listen, no matter what you choose, even if you do a C-section at the end, just do it. You know, you're gonna pull through. Doesn't matter what kind of pain you go through. You're strong. And my husband was also there for me, so I'm very grateful to them. Like every time I think about that, I come into tears because it was just a very scary experience for me and very traumatic. I don't talk about that a lot with my friends or my family, but it was very traumatic and very scary because it was such a first experience for me for like almost everything. So at the end, we ended up doing the C-section because, you know, emergency reasons. And oh my gosh, the old thing I remember is like not feeling a thing after getting the epidural. But the epidural, it was quite a little painful for me because I was scared. I think my body was so tense. If you want to know more on that, let me know. Also, after that was done, when I was actually in the C-section room, I remember telling the doctor, hey, I actually can feel them like cutting me and things, like I can feel it. And I was like, could you add a little bit more epidural to my body? And he was like, oh, okay, I thought you didn't want. I was like, I know, I guess I changed my mind. I don't know. It was just like, it was very strange. But once it was done, all I remember was seeing my son for like a second. And then next thing you know, they're already patched me up and everything. And they're like, can you try to move? And like, cause I'm a heavyset girl and I understand that. But there's like 5 or 6 different doctors, and you're gonna tell me that you couldn't lift me up, not lift me up, but like kind of transfer me to the other bed. No, they were telling me you have to try to move. I'm like, I can literally not move anything. How can you expect me to move? Like literally I can't. So I tried, but I couldn't. So it took a little while for them to transfer me to the the other bed, I guess. It was just kind of funny and weirdly stupid to me, but whatever. And after that, all I remember was seeing this bundle of joy. He was everything when I saw him. He had red cheeks and he was all wrapped up, and it was quite an experience. All I remember really is feeling really hot, because in the room that they put me in, the recovery room that they put me, it was like extremely hot. There was like no ventilation going on there. I was dying of thirst, and I'm like, what is up with this nurse? She's not even helping me. I'm like, nurse, can I get some water? She's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do it right now. She never does it. I'm like, seriously, lady, I need some water. I'm gonna die here. And of course, my mom was worried about my son, because she's like, why is he so red? And I didn't put two and two together at that time, because I'm like, I don't know, maybe he just came out like that. He'll probably be fine. But I just I realized it a couple of weeks, maybe a week ago or two ago, and I was telling my mom, and I was like, it just makes sense why the baby was so hot, so red that day, was because it probably was really hot under all those covers that he had. If I was dying of heat, imagine him, that poor thing. So it made sense now. So that was just interesting. When it came to breastfeeding, that's another story that I will talk on later. That because of the C-section, apparently they had fed my child. They got to him before I got to nurse him, so it was very hard for him to latch for a long time, and it was very difficult for me. But that's a story that I'm going to share with you guys later on. So the reason why I'm actually sharing you guys my story now is because this channel is not just focused on my own weight loss or fitness journeys. It's really, I want to focus on really helping other women, other moms actually, going through the same thing as me on their fitness journey or on their mom journey, or any type of journey that they may have similar as mine. I want to help them out. I want to show them they're not alone, and that whatever they're going through, we can all go through it together. It's like, seriously, we can have a community and build something. So I just want to share my side of the story. I'm not saying I'm a nutritionist or anything like that, or even a doctor. I want to not only help mamas with fitness journey, but I want to help them emotionally somehow and like connect with them. It just, I feel like knowing other moms and other women that go through the same thing as me makes me feel connected more with them. If you guys want to know more detail, much more details of certain things that happen in the event, let me know down in the comments. Like this video so I would know that you actually liked it, and I would definitely just let me know exactly what you want to know, or if you have questions related to C-section or birth, or even fitness journeys, like what you went through or what you're going through, let me know down in the comments. I would love to connect with you guys. Watch my other videos. I don't know if it's on this side or on this side, but watch my my latest videos. I have a video up on food sensitivity that's gonna help me a lot once I give birth. Go check out that video. It's very helpful, and I feel like it's really worth the money. Look at my son. This is my son. I love him. He's like, don't. You're embarrassing, mommy. You're embarrassing me.